Steven, it's NBA draft season. Do you want to know what my favorite part of NBA draft season is?
The left-handed players?
Okay, well, that's too far. Okay, we're like 30, not even 30 seconds into the show. No.
You asked me a question.
I know, but the left-handed players, this is not how the cold open was supposed to go.
So I'm wrong?
Yes, you are wrong. My favorite thing about
I don't know,
the NBA
Eric,
draft.
you tell me what your favorite thing about the NBA draft is.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at. Mm-hmm. I love all the names, great names, and we're going to get into 8 of them today. Psychos and sickos unite for the first NBA Draft Deep Dive edition of PHNX Suns of the offseason. I'm Erik, that's Stephen, Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen per usual. But of course, the most important people, all of you in the chat live on YouTube after the fact. And of course, our wonderful, beautiful audio listeners, like, subscribe to PHNX Sports, and 5-star reviews on audio go such a long way in promoting our show and welcoming the newest psychos and sickos that we could possibly find. Steven, a fun show today after a fun show yesterday. Yesterday, we had Mark Stein. We had Tim Legler on talking about the overall state of the Suns. And today, we start our focusing on the draft.
Yeah, 29 and 52. A lot of players projected to be potentially available for the Suns, and we are going to have some fun talking about some of those players that might pique some of you all's interest and align with some of the archetypes that we spoke to in terms of players they should be adding to this roster going into next season. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. Before we get into our special guest, Leo brings it up in the chat. Happy birthday to Gerald, to our own very own Girth, our own very own. How about that? The funny thing is Joe's behind the scenes right now, and he has no idea why I just called a grown man Girth, so that's going to be fun to have to explain that to him. But very happy birthday to him. Everything is going great with him and Archer Brooks Bourget, not Goku, Bourget and Amy, but we're wishing him a very happy birthday. We ready to get down to business?
Let's get to it.
Let's get down to business. Welcoming in Feed the Post podcast and basketball analyst, Joe Jacksonn, who has been breaking down Big Ten ball and college basketball for, once again, the Feed the Post podcast and his own Substack. Joe, my first question is, are you wearing shoes right now?
No, not wearing shoes. I am pretty firm on my stance of I do not wear shoes inside of buildings or inside of homes, I should say.
You would say you're shoeless Joe Jacksonn then?
I would say that, yes.
Joe, thank you so much for taking some time. Just a general wide perspective of this draft class. Like Steven mentioned, the Suns have the 29th pick and the 52nd pick in this year's draft. As somebody who spends a lot of time covering the college basketball sport, is this a deep draft, would you say?
Yeah, I really do think it is. You go up and down the entire first round, and even into some of the second round guys. It's just like, oh yeah, like I can very clearly imagine a role where they succeed. I think, especially compared to some of the previous years, I do think this is a pretty deep draft. I think next year probably should be as well. But yeah, like I'm not going to be shocked if a few like second rounders really become impact players in a few years.
That's always the fun, because especially for the Suns, when you have a new general manager in place that has a keen eye for talent, that becomes an advantage for you. And if there is a draft that comes up, which, like Joe just mentioned, has some gems that you might be able to find in the second round, like we talked about last week, maybe it's advantageous for the Suns to repeat some of their efforts from last year's draft, where you find someone that you know is going to fit your context, that you're going to have a role and opportunity for, trade back for them, get some other things in return, and then obviously key in on the pieces that you want. sounds like there's going to be opportunity there for that.
Yeah, and one of the things we're going to do today, Joe, is you have 4 prospects that we can look at 29 and 4 prospects we can look at 52. So let's just dive right into it. At the end of the first round, who is a prospect that you think would help the Suns?
I think as I've kind of looked through different mocks and things, Ben Saraf is the guy that like I just keep coming back to. Is I'm surprised he is mocked as low as he is. Point guard, 6'7" point guard from Israel, really good passer. And I'm sure we'll deep dive into him in a sec, but he's a guy that I just think can come in and really, become a true point guard. He's played overseas. He's had success overseas. He's, played really well at like U18s and things like that. He checks a lot of the boxes off. And then like, it's just tough to find guys at his size with his kind of playmaking, with his passing ability. 6'6", 6'7", like I said, like it's just hard to find dudes with that kind of size and talent. And like I said, I'm surprised every time I look that he's mocked at very late first round, early second round. I would think in a lot of drafts he would be borderline lottery.
Is that where you would have him? If you were picking, you would find him somewhere around like 15 to maybe 17?
Yeah, somewhere in that range, I would say. Obviously, it depends on teams and things like that, but that's kind of where I think I would grade his talent at.
If he does slip, he's a 6'7" point guard. What does his fit look like with a score-first shooting guard like Devin Booker?
Yeah, I think the fit there would be pretty seamless. Right, Saraf, one of the things that he will have to improve and need to develop is kind of the jumper. That is one of the weaker points, but like he's a great passer. He's a really good driver, good footwork, and so I think it would work. Of like you just see, you can let Booker be off ball a little bit more. Let Saraf kind of create that initial, advantage. Now you're kicking out to Booker, KD, or whoever, and just kind of letting them work from there. And so those are going to be big things I think that would really work well with Saraf. Just given, like I think he's going to be one of the best passers in the draft, and to get that at 29 at his size, it's hard. I think it would be pretty easy to fit next to guys like Booker, who are obviously very talented scorers.
Yeah, if you find someone with that type of positional size at 6'6", 6'7", that can make the plays and see the floor the ways in which he does, that's an automatic prospect that's going to catch any team's attention. Naturally, the player that checks that box off the most robust over the last handful of years is Luka Doncic. He's drawn comparisons to Luka, not necessarily to the extent of being an all-time great prospect.
He wears 77.
He wears the same number, exactly. He's admitted to watching Luka film, and you can see some of those same dynamics playing out in what makes his game so effective on the offensive end. He has similar questions that Luka did as well, if we're going to take it to that step, as far as what does the athleticism look like as it translates to the NBA level? Is the defense going to be good enough to where he's not going to be a negative on that end and you can still get the positives out of him on the offensive end? What does the jump shot look like because it's not the quickest? Can he create enough space to consistently get it off, and what does the efficiency look like? A lot of those exact same questions can be copied and pasted to Saraf's game. I'm curious what Gregory would think about this prospect, though, because I wonder if he checks off the box in terms of position that they would be looking for, or to your point from last week, do they go with the best talent available?
Well, I think position is definitely interesting. We're going to talk about a wing and a couple of centers the Suns could also target with these 2 picks, because even Michael Evans in our chat says, how about a real center? I know point guard's not going to be super high on the list, but a 6'7" guard that can do a little bit of everything is a good archetype in today's NBA. I think the number one question about how he fits in Phoenix beyond the passing and the scoring is his defense. Obviously, he has the body type and the archetype of being a good perimeter defender. But, Joe, do you see him being a plus defender in the NBA?
I think it's within the realm of possibilities. I wouldn't for sure bet on it, and I would think that is probably one of the biggest reasons why you've seen him kind of fall in a lot of these mocks and things, is like, as was mentioned, the athleticism and kind of the foot speed. Specifically on the defensive end, that's going to be a big question. Can he be held up? Can you put him in lineups where can he be kind of hidden off ball and use his length maybe to be disruptive, in passing lanes, things like that. So it's within the realm of possibilities. I wouldn't for sure bet on it though.
Okay, so we've talked about an overseas guard and Ben Saraf. The chat wants a center, Joe. Maybe a Big Ten center, possibly?
Yeah, Danny Wolf. I mean, he is not maybe the most traditional center, but Danny Wolf. He played. I mean, he played power forward / center at Michigan this year, 7-footer, and there's just things that he did that nobody else could do in the college game. 7-foot, handle the ball. The Michigan's go-to play for, I think around January is probably when they started really going to it, was they started running pick and rolls with Danny Wolf handling the ball. So they had a 7-footer in Vladislav Golden, who, Golden could maybe be the number 52 pick. I know we probably won't talk about him. But then you have Danny Wolf just running pick and roll, where he's, making these like off balance 1 foot 15 fadeaways. He can pull up 3. He's throwing off, live dribble offhanded passes coming off pick and roll to cutters to kickouts. Like, I think there's going to be some questions maybe about like the rim protection, things like that. And so if you're looking for a more traditional center, Danny Wolf's probably not that answer. But you're talking about a pick number 29. There's only, the talent's only so much at that point. And Danny, in terms of just pure talent, Danny Wolf, like, he is just going to do things and is able to do things with the ball in his hands that dudes his size, especially at the college level, just simply can't do.
He's like very, very quirky, maybe for a lack of better adjectives to describe his game. Like, he clearly knows what he's doing. It's just not as fluid as maybe other players that have a similar archetype as his at his position have it. I probably liken him to Kelly Olynyk in many ways. He has a lot of that type of flair and dynamic to his game. He's a little bit taller than Kelly, but as far as how he operates, where he's most effective, and kind of the usage, it's very similar to what Kelly is when he's been at his best. I just have one big question. Erik, you can probably answer this one better.
Hit me. Brian
Gregory, Matt Ishbia. What school did those two go to?
They are Michigan State faithful.
Correct.
But I mean, Brian Gregory talks about alignment, has alignment with U of M alum Josh Bartlestein. Mm-hmm. So maybe Bartlestein is in there talking about a U of M guy. I don't know if school is going to determine it as much. I get what you're saying, though.
I'm not saying it's going to go. I'm just, the irony
I get what you're 100%.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Joe, in the chat, there are a couple people who are not super high on Danny Wolf. Are there any major red flags for his translation to the NBA? Because a 7-footer that can shoot and pass kind of feels like what you want out of a big man in the modern NBA.
Yeah, like Danny Wolf is by no means a surefire home run, but you kind of look at what he's able to do with the rebounding, the passing. He had solid rim protection. Again, a lot of his rim protection almost came as kind of the secondary because they did have another true center next to him. But the biggest concern is going to be kind of the similar to Saraf, is going to be the foot speed, is going to be the athleticism. And credit to Danny Wolf, because going into last season at Michigan, the idea of playing these 2 7-footers together was kind of pitched all off season. And there, me included, a lot of concerns of like, okay, can he even hold up defensively, like at the 4? I know college is way different than the NBA in terms of athleticism, foot speed, all of that type of stuff, but he did way better than I expected. And so I think you look at those improvements, there's just always going to be some limitations for what he's doing. And it'll be interesting to see how he's used at the NBA level. Like, is he going to be paired next to a true big where now he is guarding more on the perimeter? Is he going to be played more as a true center where, now he's going up against bigger bodies? So he's almost defensively a little bit of like a tweener, which is kind of, I feel like, rare at his size, given that he's 7 foot. But that is going to be the biggest thing, is like, can he hold up enough defensively that the offense like is definitely good enough to just make it worth it?
We've been through 2 names that the Suns could target with pick number 29. We got 2 more for 29 and 4 names for the second round, and we're going to get to all of those right after our first break. Stephen, I'm so excited for this weekend, not just because it's the weekend, but because I'm staying at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass on Saturday night into Sunday morning.
Humble brag.
I mean, I'm just pumped. It's about time. We've done so many events
Okay,
out
LeBron.
at Wild Horse Pass. It's about damn time, okay? We've done so many events out there at Wild Horse Pass, Gila River Resorts and Casinos, and it's my favorite Gila River Resort and Casino. I know they've got Lone Butte and a bunch of other ones around the valley, but I'm keen for Wild Horse Pass. Me and my beautiful bride Megan are gonna go hang out on the pool, play some of the slots games down there, maybe check out the sports book and catch a little NBA action as well. Just a nice little staycation, because you know what, Stephen? I've earned it. And you know what? So have all of you. If you want a nice staycation, a night out on the town, or whatever Gila River Resorts and Casinos might bring you, all you have to do is be yourself. You do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details. I was saying this on the ASU show, but last night I went and played a little pickup, and I went right after work, and I was rocking my Brandon Bills hat. And you know what? I didn't have to think to myself, let me take this hat off, let me put it to the side. No, I knew I could rock out with my Brandon Bills hat. Got a lot of compliments on it. Hooped it up as well on our PHNX Brandon Bills collab. And Brandon Bills is the best place to get snapbacks, truckers, fitted, beanies, or tees. They have you covered with, yes, style, but also, like I mentioned, performance. And if you're looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, Brandon Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear around. They have partnerships with fantastic schools like Arizona State University, and they slum it out with the likes of the University of Arizona. It's more of a charity thing. Also partners with the PHNX Suns, and they're a local company. We love supporting local right here out of Mesa, Arizona. Plus, you can get some money off your first order. Head to brandonbills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 10% off your first order. That's brandonbills.com, BBPHNX for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Teddy. This ain't Mike. Ted. We got multiple Teds in the chat. Emilio, and shout out to Joe joining us live. Joe Jacksonn of the Feed the Post podcast, also on Substack, covering Big Ten hoops and college basketball in general. Hit that like button if you're hanging out with us, you psychos and sickos. I know Teddy in the chat is defending. He's defending Danny Wolf, borderline 7-footer that can shoot, take guys off the dribble, finish with either hand. He's a total steal at 29. That's what Teddy thinks.
He also left a message for the Debbie Doubters.
The doubter says you don't know ball if you don't like Danny
honestly,
Wolf at 29.
With the way that some people gloss over highlights, if you watch 5 minutes of Danny Wolf shooting step back threes and shooting threes versus unders and pick and roll, you will be quickly sold. And I wouldn't say you're wrong on it. He wouldn't be my personal pick at number 29 for the Suns from this crop of players that we're speaking to. But he is far from a bum in some of the ways that I'm seeing people talk about him in the comments.
I could talk myself into him. And plus, we talked about they need a center that can shoot threes.
They just need someone in the front court to be able to space it.
Well, there's a couple other players that you brought to our attention, Joe. I'll let you take the reins. Where do you want to go next with our third or fourth prospect that the Suns are going to be looking at number 29?
Yeah, I mean, we can jump to Cedric Coward, who is like a wing from Washington State. Now, he did get hurt this year, didn't play all that much, but he's been somebody that's kind of been rocketing up draft boards. He potentially is going to be at Duke. He's a guy that, like, in today's NBA, you just can't have enough of. 6'6", 3-and-D guy, shot really, really well from three, 38% from three in his college career, can shoot off movement, really good balance, really, really good repeatable mechanics that just kind of work everywhere. But he's not just a three-point guy. Now, at the next level, I'm curious to see kind of what his interior finishing and kind of mid-range games looks like off the dribble. But at the college level, he was a guy that could get to the rim, that could get to the mid-range, that can drive and kick and facilitate for others, even though he's not a primary point guard by any means. Good length defensively. I think he was measured as 7'2" wingspan, which is like a +8 or whatever compared to his 6'6" height. He's a guy that just you kind of take a shot on, because I think he's a guy that every team can use, right? You can't have enough 3-and-D wings. And he's a guy that, especially later in this first round, if he's there, makes sense to me for teams to take because of just kind of the upside. I think the single biggest, I don't know if argument against him is what you want to call it, but just, red flag is that he hasn't played against a ton of high major level. He was at Eastern Washington for 2 seasons, only had a handful of games there, only played a few games at Washington State last year. So there is that concern that, hey, does everything just translate up? And we haven't fully seen that yet. But 6'6" dudes with 7'2" wingspans that can defend and shoot the three, like, there's only so many of those guys that come around.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to get to. It's the measurables, the physicals first, 6'6", 7'2" wingspan, 38-inch vertical leap as well. I think one of the biggest things that wings struggle with once they get to the professional level is not just relying on athleticism to finish, but refining your skills and being able to have that footwork around the paint to where, okay, straight line drive, cool. I got to where I want to be. Can I finish off of two in an extended arm finish with my strong hand and my weak hand? Do I have a soft touch floater that I can maybe use with both hands potentially? Do I have the up and unders? Do I have the footwork to then kind of navigate against 7'1", 7'2" type defenders that have plus 7'2" wingspans to kind of combat the size that you might have as an athlete? I think that's where those things kind of come into play. We saw a lot of that with Ryan Dunn this past season and the season before that. Obviously not with the Suns, but Toumani Camara had similar struggles. But once he figured out the footwork, the efficiency went right up immediately. I think that Cedric is someone that can certainly have that type of skill evolve quickly, and especially if he's playing with a Devin Booker and potentially with a Kevin Durant. If he's playing off of closeouts for almost all of the minutes that he's on the court, you have somebody that can make the most out of that advantage, not just by putting the ball on the deck, but also being viable with the catch and shoot efficiency and not being afraid to take the shots that they would need to keep the team shot profile in alignment with where it wants to be.
Joe, do you feel like he slots in more defensively as a guard or a forward? A guard on ESPN.
Yeah, probably guard with like the ability to play up and depending on career development and all that, like come playoff time, if lineups ever go smaller, then he could probably guard up a little bit. But I would expect him to be more kind of 2-3s, like guarding those types of guys, not as many 4s.
I got you. Okay. So I really liked Cedric Coward's game. Of course, only 6 games at Washington State, but in those 6 games, there was a lot of film and tape that you can break down. I know you have one more name that you brought us, Joe, but I'm going to take us a little bit off path because the chat is talking about Adou Thiero out of Arkansas. What do you know about his game, his translation to the NBA, and is that somebody the Suns could maybe get at 29?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably being projected right in that area. Very good offensive rebounder, especially his past 2 seasons, as he's continued to get more minutes. Really good and kind of versatile defender where he could guard on the perimeter some. He helped protect the rim for Arkansas at times. Really good finisher on the interior. The shot is questionable at best. He didn't take a bunch of threes. He didn't make many of those that he did take. Definitely more of kind of a line drive, type guy, get downhill, get to the rim, use his physicality and his strength. Like there's definitely a lot of tools, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that I think would probably translate fairly quickly to the NBA. And then the offense, it would just be kind of you see the upside and you just kind of hope it hits.
You pray for it. I think a lot of people are looking at what Ryan Dunn did with the Suns and that type of defensive player and asking, can Adou Thiero do some of that as well as contribute on the offensive end? So there you go, chat. We talked about Adou Thiero. That was for you. Last name out of the 4 that you brought us, Joe, to target in the end of the first round for the Suns.
Yeah, and so this is a little bit of an interesting name, Yaxel Lendeborg. He played at UAB the past 2 seasons. He is committed to Michigan right now, and it has been very much put out there that he has a multi-million-dollar NIL deal on the table from Michigan if he were to return. He's one of the few guys left that is has a legitimate decision on whether he should stay or go. So some of it will depend on promises, things like that. But getting into the actual just player himself with Lendeborg, he's a guy that's just really unique. And for me, when I look at kind of like building rosters and things like that, like through the draft especially, there comes a point when I think it's just worth it taking shots on guys, especially guys that have unique kind of traits. And I think that's kind of probably been the theme throughout some of these players that we've talked about. And Lendeborg is a 6'9" forward that at UAB has done basically everything. At times he was basically a run point guard. He had a really good assist rate, really, really versatile defensively, like very good rim protector, Good hands defensively. I think the foot speed translating to him guarding fours, like some quicker fours, will be a question mark. But besides that, defensively, like kind of just checks everything of 6'9", physical, rebounds incredibly well. And then the offensive side, right? He's a positive passer, really good interior finisher, and then it's also showed, especially last year, like he can knock down the three, not super high volume, and so right there's always the chance that it doesn't quite translate. But 36% on 70 attempts basically last year. There's at least the upside there that the shooting also translates. It's just another guy that's like, hey, you can do a bit of everything. For me, especially late first, early second type area, it becomes harder to kind of pass on those types of guys if he stays in the draft. There's always that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that caveat up. But for everything I've seen from Yaxel, just versatility. He just screams it on offense and on defense. Can operate as a handler in pick and roll, obviously operate as a screener in pick and roll, can be a connector, play the dribble handoffs, be a cutter on the weak side, can shoot a little bit. I think the biggest question mark is the streakiness of the offensive production in terms of scoring. But as a playmaker in a secondary or like maybe on a short roll and things like that, he can do all of those little things and does it with a certain cadence that suggests that it will translate well to the NBA level. And then on the defensive end, I think that's where he kind of strikes the same accord as multiple other 3-4 tweeners that are in main rotations of NBA teams.
I agree with y'all there. I loved his tape. I loved watching him at UAB. Seems like a fun player. There are definitely some question marks on how he translates to the NBA, but when you get to pick number 29, there's always going to be a couple question marks surrounding those types of players. So we've been through 4 names in the first round, Joe. Ben Saraf, Cedric Coward, Yaxel Lendeborg, and Danny Wolf. Do you have a favorite out of those 4 names? And let's throw Adou Thiero in there. That would fit with the Suns?
I think in terms of pure just like value at the number 29 pick, I think Ben Saraf. Uh, but in terms of maybe just like who I like the best, like I'm a big Lendeborg guy. I'm also a big Wolf guy, but I think I would go Lendeborg just because I love guys like that that are just so versatile, like you guys said, and can be the screener, can be the ball handler, like can do a bit of everything, good defensively. Like I think it's just easier for guys like that to find some sort of niche and calling kind of in the NBA. Maybe it's not, maybe he doesn't have to do all of that we listed, but he's very good in some of it. I think it's easier for guys like that to probably translate to the NBA.
Okay, so that's our first round coverage. We'll only have you for a couple more minutes. Joe, thanks for taking some time out of your day to share your knowledge with us. That number 52 pick, you also brought us 4 names that the Suns could target at 52. Let's run through those a little quicker, maybe a short little sentence or 2 breakdown on those 4, and then who your favorite of those 4 would be.
Yeah, you want me to run through all 4 right now? Or okay. Yeah, so start with probably if he's here, he would be, I think, a guy you just walk up and you just pick him right away. Yannick Niederhauser from Penn State, 7 foot, athletic, moves well, great shot blocker, very very limited volume. Has shown he can step out and knock down a 3. He's another guy. Maybe stays, maybe goes. And if he is at 52, like if he doesn't have a promise before then, I don't know if he ends up there. But 7 foot, athletic, protects the rim. I really do buy into him being able to be an NBA player. Sion James from Duke, 6'6", kind of wing, similar-ish mold to Lendeborg in terms of a little bit of do-it-all type, can handle, can facilitate. The jumper has improved throughout college, and it was good last year. Super physical and strong defender that maybe I don't know if he'll help protect the rim at the NBA level, but at Duke he did some really physical perimeter defender that can go and get it at the number 52 spot. Ryan Nembhard, brother of Andrew Nembhard, who's playing for the Pacers right now, point guard from Gonzaga. One of the his thing will be just that he's an elite passer. Like that is going to be his biggest thing. Led college in assists per game, I believe, last year at over 10 a game. Really smart decision maker. And just can kind of do a lot with the basketball in his hands that way. Also shot the ball well from 3, shot 40% from 3 on basically 100 attempts last season. And then the last guy, maybe a little bit of a reach, and honestly, he's a guy that maybe is even more of a target as like an undrafted 2-way, is Bryce Williams from Nebraska, and maybe that might be the little bit of the Big Ten, bias coming out inside of me, but from Nebraska, 6 foot, like 6'6". Another guy that he ran point guard for Nebraska last year. He's not a point guard at the NBA level, legitimate 3-level scorer. And he's just like, he is so polished. And he's a guy that I think if he gets into the right fit and kind of the right role, he's a guy that can come in day one, or maybe not day one, but year one, year two, and just be like, oh, that guy plays way older than what he is. Like, he's a guy that's you watch and you're like, oh, he's a 5, 6, 7 year vet. And it's like, oh no, he's actually year one, year two. Just incredibly, incredibly polished in terms of the offensive side of the ball.
Awesome. Thank you. Those 4 names, definitely ones that we're going to be keeping track of. Joe, do you want to let the people know where it is that they can find you if they're interested in some Big Ten and college basketball breakdowns?
Yeah, so you can find my Substack is called Feed the Post. That is more just Big Ten centric. A lot of film breakdown is kind of the base of everything that I do. And then on YouTube, also Feed the Post. And that one's a little bit more just college basketball, general, doing breakdowns from the national coverage. So, yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
Sweet. That is Joe Jacksonn. You can follow him on Twitter at Joe Jacksonn College Basketball. And yes, that is right. He is not wearing shoes.
And as I always say, support the people that do the work that you desire to see more of in this space, whether it be the collegiate level on either side of basketball or the professional level. A lot of people aren't doing the things that Joe's doing on the college level. That's why I thought it was perfect to have him on. And I think he just provided people with a lot of insight and information that they did not have prior to listening to this podcast from us. So we appreciate you tapping in with us, Joe. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube as well as subscribing to his Substack as well, Feed the Post. I'm subscribed to both, and I always learn. And you can just learn a lot from even following him on Twitter, quite honestly.
Chat is saying thank you, Joe. We appreciate you. We'll have to have you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, that again is Joe Jacksonn covering the Big Ten and college basketball as a whole. Make sure you go and support him because, like Stephen said, he's doing good work breaking down hoop the right way. We're going to go over all 8 names that he brought up, give our own opinions, give you some stats for them, and we're going to do all of that right after our second break. Ooh, it's a big night for you, boy. Of course, the Eastern Conference Finals are kicking off. I got that recorded.
You said that like you about to play tonight.
I'm suing up. Tibbs is going 9 deep tonight, and I'm on the court. No, listen, it's a big night for me also because my favorite show, Survivor, it's the season finale, 3 hours long. So I'm going to be recording that Eastern Conference Finals game, and that means I got to lock in on the couch. And, of course, that's where Pure Edibles comes in. Founded in Arizona, available in 130 dispensaries statewide. Pure gummies are not just covered in sugar like all their competitors, but damn, do they still taste good. Pure gummies offer sleep support as long as everything else. And the best part is you get that clearly listed on your tin. They have CBN, CBG, CBD, marijuana-derived THC all combined, and they're designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable and easy to dial in your exact dose. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across Arizona. And if you want to put some money down on the conference finals, whether it's in the West or it's in the East, maybe you're watching the NHL, maybe you want to put down some futures on NFL action, Bet365 is the best place to do so. 90 million users worldwide. They live stream almost 800,000 events each year and early payout offers with sports like the NBA and NHL. They pioneered live in-game betting, but the best part is right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit 10, place a bet for $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT-STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Brian, Patrick, this ain't Mike, Sean, Kev, Ashley, woo, whole crew coming together on a Wednesday afternoon. Just heard from Joe Jacksonn breaking down some college basketball. Now it's our turn. Stephen, 4 names that he gave in the first round that the Suns could target. Of course, we'll go over a lot more names before the draft comes up on June 25th, just about a month away. Ben Saraf Cedric Coward, Yaxel Lendeborg, and Danny Wolf. Where do you want to start? Who's your favorite name from those four?
I mean, my favorite is Cedric Coward because of the physical measurements in particular. We talk about the plus 7 foot wingspan at 6'6" with a 38-inch vertical leap as well. The athleticism that I see translating to the NBA level. The skill, if we're getting to talking about his game, that matches with the athleticism to play in the context that the Suns are going to need their role players, especially from the guard/wing group, to be good to very good at. I think he's already got a lot of those skills in his dynamic in one already. Just obviously needs to refine it and get it up to professional levels. And I think that little things like we talked about with the footwork, the handle getting a little bit tighter to attack closeouts and attack specific angles on closeouts to then put him in position to finish below the free throw line. Little things like that. I didn't even get a chance to talk about his defense because I know we were on the time crunch, but dude gets after it now. Dude gets after it. A point of attack defender that can go with Ryan Dunn to allow for Ryan Dunn to toggle from point of attack to when he's on the court with Coward, be able to play against wings and bigger type of defenders like that and test his mettle against those types.
The thing with Cedric Coward is and this is going to sound so weird, but just let me get through this. It's a blessing in disguise that he actually did get injured for the Phoenix Suns. If this guy played a full college basketball season, he'd be a lottery pick. Yeah. The measurables, the shooting, the defense. I know that Joe brought up the rim pressure and will that contribute. He shot 71% at the rim last year specifically, and took about 30% of his shots at the rim. Before we get into Cedric Coward's stats, I want to give a shout out to Drake DH in the chat. Says, hi, everyone from Italy. Go Suns. Love our international Suns fans. And then Killer X says, do any of these players help the Suns seriously get back into the playoffs short term? Maybe. I mean, at 29 and 52, you're not exactly sure those are going to be instant impact players, but do we think the Suns would have been better if they actually played Ryan Dunn all of last season and also Iguodala?
Yeah. You know, you don't usually find rookies that impact the main rotation so early in their careers after the lottery, but on rare occasion, you do find players that have a specific fit, a specific archetype, a specific skill set that a team needs. And that's when you're talking about fit and you talk about defense. If the Suns have players that are plus in their positional size, they have a major plus in wingspan, actually care about playing defense, and have the skills to match that and the athleticism to match it, that's the type of impact that player can have. And to your point, if he wasn't hurt last season, he's not going to be available for the Suns at 29.
100%.
So the fact that he is, and there's a match in terms of context, fit, role, and opportunity, you don't pass on that if you have the opportunity to bring that into your context.
And that's a player that could be paired with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Of course, there was reports earlier today from Jake Fisher that a return for Kevin Durant is still on the table. I recorded a trending mini podcast. It's in your audio feeds and on YouTube. If you want some more breakdown on that, we might talk about it a little bit more later this week and in the future if some more news comes out. But some reports from Jake Fisher about Kevin Durant potentially staying in the Valley. We got you covered on those trending mini pods that we got coming out once or twice a week. Love Cedric Coward's game. Let's go ahead and take a look at his stats from last season. Of course, like you and Joe mentioned, only 6 games, but 17.7 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists per game, shooting 55.7% from the field, 40% from 3, 6'6", 230. Love his measurables, love the eye test, love the shooting form, his driving to the rim. He makes good defensive plays as well, a 7'2" wingspan, just all around the type of player that teams salivate over in the modern NBA. To me, it's a surefire pick if he drops to 29 to take him. My only problem is, Killer Rex says the name. Yeah, Cedric Coward is a tough name.
You just call him CC.
CC, double C. There's Cedric Ceballos, but
true, relevant.
But
I'm sure he will earn the respect because of the motor that he plays with.
There are a lot of teams that have multiple first-round picks. Feels like he's going to be the guy that they take with the second pick because he's just such a high upside guy. Maria says, what's his position? Joe said slots in defensively more as a guard, but can be a forward. I would say most likely a 3-2 hybrid. Maybe if the defense holds a small ball 4 in a really small lineup, but primarily small guard perimeter defenders.
Yeah. I'll just round it out with immediate, instant blue collar boy. And if you are not new to the show, you know what that means. That's all I really have to say about that.
I like that. Where do you want to go next? Ben Saraf, Yaxel Lendeborg, or Danny Wolf?
Let's go with Wolf.
Okay, I thought the conversation around Wolf was interesting. Before we get into everything about that, let's go ahead and take a look at his stats. His stats from last season, 13.2 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, shooting 49% from the field, 33.6% from three, 7 foot, 250 pounds. Are you high on a potential Danny Wolf fit with the Suns? Because chat is split.
I'm not, and I'm not because there are too many other question marks for their front court. If their front court was balanced with just throwing out names, let's just say they had a Nick Claxton already in their team context, where they have the starting center position already squared away, and you bring in someone like Danny Wolf that's going to be a 4 or 5 tweener. If you have somebody that can insulate him defensively and put him in position to be as successful as he could be, while in turn doing the same thing on the offensive end, now I feel a lot more comfortable about bringing someone with a lot of versatility, but also a lot of question marks to his game into your context and seeing how much you can hone in on that skill. Maybe put him in a specific role so that certain skills kind of come to the surface level more often. But because there's just so much ambiguity with the Suns front court right now, it's a no for me in terms of the fit.
It's tough. I get what you're saying with the front court. Maybe if they get a free agent, even a center like a Clint Capella, and we'll go over some free agent center signings that they could possibly make this Friday for Free Agent Friday. I love a tweener shooter, 7-footer that, can do a lot like Danny Wolf. He's not just a spot up shooter. He could shoot a little off movement. He can make some nice reads and some nice passes as well. The athleticism is certainly a question in the modern NBA, but the ability to shoot threes could open up so much, especially if you do keep a Kevin Durant on this roster. If Ben Saraf and Cedric Coward are gone and maybe Yaxel Lendeborg is going to Michigan to replace Danny Wolf, I wouldn't be mad at a Danny Wolf draft pick, but I'm not in love with it. I think I could talk myself into it, but I'm not salivating over the idea of Danny Wolf.
That's the thing. I don't know if I want to be having to talk myself into a 29 pick.
And I get that. I totally get that. This ain't Mike says, Adou Thiero. Man, he loves Adou Thiero. We'll dive a little bit more into him. I haven't watched as much film on him as I did the 4 guys plus the second rounders that we're talking about today. But I like Danny Wolf as a pro prospect. Huh?
For sure. Teddy makes a great point. And not overlooking the Israeli players. Obviously, Denny Avdia spearheading a lot of those conversations. There are a lot of gems. And there was a quote-unquote risk taken with Denny being drafted. You see how that turned out. So.
Yeah, let's talk about Ben Saraf a little bit. Watching his tape, I was intrigued by, we mentioned the passing, a little bit of a slower shooter, not the most polished offensively, but 6'7" point guard. What I found interesting with him, Stephen, was his footwork. I thought he had really, really good footwork, had a decel step and everything like that. It's interesting to talk about as a fit long-term next to Booker in the backcourt.
For sure. And my question is, though, if I start with the weaknesses to kind of rebut, what does it look like if he can't get past guys on the professional level? How impactful is the footwork if he's constantly...
And how impactful is the passing?
Right.
Yeah.
I have less questions about the passing because he can always just go to pick and roll, and he's naturally going to get unders or switches, and that'll present opportunities for him to poke at certain things with a defense from his passing. But if he can't get past guys, the shooting and just how slow the shot is, I just don't know how efficient it's going to translate if it was already at like 41% in Euro Cup. You take that and you kind of apply it to the NBA level. I just have a lot of questions, and then most of my questions come on the defensive end. But this dude is a bona fide pick and roll wizard already. Yeah. Passes with both hands, sees things before they happen, roller, passing out of that. Just a really solid offensive talent.
Let's go ahead and take a look at his stats from overseas. Obviously not a college player, but 12.8 points per game, 2.2 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game. Like you mentioned, 41.9% from the field, only 22.2% from three. Listed at 6'5", 200. I think he's a little bit taller than that. But there's a lot of potential there. I think this would be more of a potential pick. I know Killer X said, do any of these players help the Suns get back to being competitive now? I would say out of these four, Yaxel Lendeborg, who we'll talk about next, Cedric Coward, and Danny Wolf, and then Ben Saraf. I would say Saraf is probably the biggest project, but with the highest upside and potential. His jump shot's a little slow, but I like the form. It doesn't look like a broken jump shot. Hit a couple shots off of movement as well. Love his speed. I know maybe with the ball he's not as fast, but he showed over in Eurobasket that off the ball he can run pretty damn fast, and he's pretty quick. He's athletic as well. He can get up, he can yam, he can dunk and everything like that. So again, I would be intrigued with Ben Saraf. That would feel like, to me though, more of a long-term project than any of these other players that feel a little bit more pro ready. Want to talk about Yaxel Lendeborg before we hit a break? Intriguing player, man. Intriguing. What do you think about players that play at schools like UAB, where they're not going to get a Power 4 competition, a Power 4 schedule? Is it harder to evaluate players that are dominant on that level?
Yes, but it depends on what you're looking at. And I imagine when front offices and scouting departments are looking at potential draft options, they're looking more so at specific skills and what they feel like will translate in contrast to what they feel like won't translate, and how that in particular fits with their team, especially if you're talking about late first round, early mid to late second round type of players. And with that, looking at things through that lens, if you just have multiple things that you're solid at, that's something that you can build off of. And I think that, again, you have someone that can do so many different things on both ends of the floor. I want to continue to emphasize that part in particular. Give yourself an opportunity to build lineups around with that player included and involved with it. Can play with Durant, can play with Booker, can play with one of those two off the court, and still find ways to have impact, not specific to one particular skill set or stat.
Yeah, the jump shot is definitely something to keep in mind, because he's not big enough to play as a true center, which means he's going to need a jump shot long-term in the NBA. This ain't Mike says Draymond Green, which I don't necessarily see that comp specifically, but apparently he's a good glue guy. Obviously has as Joe said, a multi-million-dollar deal from Michigan in the weightings. I don't know if you pass that up to be the 29th pick in the draft. Feels like if he goes in the draft, it's going to be a situation where he knows he's going to most likely be going in the top 20. Somebody takes a shot on him. Let's take a look at his stats really quick before we hit a break. We'll come back. We'll power rank those four and then talk about some second-round prospects and some playoff ball. Yaxel Lendeborg in the 2024-2025 season for UAB, 17.7 points per game, 11.4 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game, which I think is a great number for him, those assists per game. Field goal percentage, 52.2%, 35.7% from deep, 6'9", 240. So big-bodied, strong, not as tall, but I think if you asked me what his size was just by watching him play, I would have probably guessed 6'11", but that might just be the competition that UAB is playing. So those are four that the Suns can target at 29. We're going to power rank those, touch a little bit on the second round options, talk a little playoff ball, and we're going to do that all right after our final break. You know the story by now. It's even just a joke around the office because I say it so much. My family has always been using Desert Financial Credit Union. Desert Financial Credit Union's been in the Valley for over 85 years. They've been the most trusted local credit union. Plus, you can make a purchase with exclusive debit cards branded to your favorite teams. No Suns, but Arizona Cardinals, Arizona State University, and even if you're an NAU fan, you can get that as well. Desert Financial has a team of financial experts that are committed to making your life better. They're committed to their members, whether it's the basics, your checkings accounts and your savings accounts, but also mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. Join a credit union that is committed to giving back to the community and sharing success with its members. That's Desert Financial Credit Union, and one way they're proving that is by giving you money. When you open up a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started today by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 and just get your $200 for free. And you're going to get $200 for free from Desert Financial Credit Union, and you're going to save $350 off new flooring when you use Empire today. You don't want to go to these big box stores that just leave you dry and just hanging, and who cares what happens to you. Go pick out your own flooring, pay full price for it, and then you need help installing? We could do it in maybe a year. No. Not with Empire today. Not only do they have flooring psychos and sickos who are absolutely dedicated to their craft and about figuring out what's the best floor for your home, but also about making it quick and easy for you. We're talking free in-home estimates, next day installation, and like I mentioned before, $350 off, along with clear upfront all-inclusive pricing. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better off at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. That's right, $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit empireday.com/PHNX for full details. Hit that like button, folks. We're a little light on the likes today, so let's get those up. Do it for the Phoenix animation in the corner of your screen. Hit that subscribe button as well. Like I mentioned, we do have a trending mini pod out on the recent Kevin Durant news. You can find that right here on PHNX Sports. Steven, before we get into a little playoff talk, is Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals happened last night. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. Let's power rank those 4 first-round prospects: Ben Saraf, Cedric Coward, Yaxel Lendeborg, Danny Wolf. Who's your 1?
Cedric Coward.
2.
I would say Yaxel, but obviously contingent upon if he's going to go
Let's
into
just
the
assume
draft.
they're all in the draft.
And it would be Yaxel for sure.
3.
Will be Danny. 3 will be Ben. 3 will be Ben for me, and then 4 will be Danny.
I agree exactly with that. Okay, cool. Fun. That was a good power rankings. No,
That was easy.
I definitely agree with you there. Ben Saraf, I still think has the highest upside, maybe the lowest floor as well. The biggest risk the Suns could take, but I think that's worth it. Danny Wolf, I believe, will be a good player in the NBA. Maybe Danny Wolf, if he slides in the second round, could be somebody the Suns would target.
I look at him way different in the second round compared to 29.
100%. Cedric Coward is the clear 1-1 for me. Love his game. And this guy would be an absolute bona fide lottery pick if he played a healthy season for Washington State. Before we get to our second round draft prospects, Teddy with a $9.99 super chat says, I know y'all not doing trades, but I couldn't stop thinking about this. Why keep Fox, Castle, and Harper? Spurs get KD and Duncan Robinson. Heat get De'Aaron Fox. The Suns get Devin Vassell, Jaime Jaquez, Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, and Blake Wesley, plus 2025 and 2030 Miami first. So Spurs get KD, Duncan Robinson for giving up Fox and Vassell. And then Miami gets De'Aaron Fox for giving up Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez, Slow-Mo, Blake Wesley, and 2 first-round picks. That's really cheap for Fox, in my opinion.
I appreciate the thought process, the thought exercise. Teddy, I got bad news for you, though. San Antonio barely saw Fox with Wembanyama. Not trading that dude anytime soon.
Yeah, I do appreciate the trade idea, though.
For anybody that wants to go and put that work in themselves and see how hard it is to match contracts,
sure,
find something that makes sense for all teams involved, I will always salute that.
Yeah. Plus, that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow.
Correct.
I'll be off the show. It'll be Espo and Steve, and they're going to take you through a trade machine Thursday, but I'll be sending in some of my own trades to maybe cause a little chaos. Speaking of causing chaos, can the Suns cause chaos with their second round pick? 4 names that Joe gave us: Sion James, Bryce Williams, Yannick Conan Niederhauser, and Ryan Nembhard. I'm going to be honest, out of these 4 names, I'm really intrigued with Yannick Conan Niederhauser. He is 7'1", and if you're looking for a rim-running athletic center, which is something the Suns desperately need, if you're looking for that in the second round, Steven, that's your pick. If he falls.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he falls, I would redirect the conversation a little bit for me to Sion James.
Okay, hit me with some Sion.
Defense, that's it.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Good cutter, too. Like, good on offense, decent, too.
He's not going to be a liability because he can figure out ways to have impact past just spacing and, the arbitrary things. But the defensive hit, the value that he would add from that perspective, the versatility within all of that, again, you cannot put a value on players that you find that will be inclined to the defensive end just innately. You don't have to get them to buy into that end because that's already part of their individual identity. And if you're talking about having more blue-collar players, more young athletic players, Sion James checks off those boxes in spades.
Especially with a later second-round pick.
Yeah.
That's just the type of youth and athleticism and energy that fits really well.
It sounds
next
a
to
lot
Devin
like
Booker.
Toumani Camara in multiple respects.
Now you're getting me excited.
Mhm.
Toumani Camara.
A gem in the second round that identifies with the defensive end, that has athleticism, versatility, positional size, all of those fun things.
You have any thoughts on Bryce Williams out of Nebraska?
Yeah.
He scored 20 points per game, by the way.
6'6", versatile. Again, you can't put a value. Versatility is everything. If you can get that versatility that translates to both ends of the court, that's also someone that can score at 3 levels in one of the Power 5 conferences, any capacity, yeah.
Top 20 in the nation in scoring, 20.4 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists per game, shot 37% from three, 47% from the field as a senior. Like you mentioned, he's actually 6'7", listed on ESPN, 214 pounds. That is a prototypical let's get a bucket type of guy, which isn't necessarily what the Suns are looking for in these prospects. I feel like it's more of a, hey, can you come in, connect the plays, be athletic, play defense. But with 52, getting somebody who is that type of scoring, it would be a fun fit. Joel in the chat says Suns had a pre-draft workout with Bryce Williams as well. This same Mike says G League guy. That is the type of player, and I've said this with Janai Broom, who I again say I'm not the highest on Janai Broom, that there are players that are tailor-made for college. I'll have to dive a little bit more into Bryce Williams' film, but getting that type of scoring precedent at 52 is good. Ryan Nembhard is interesting. I feel like if this team was in a different spot, love his passing. I just don't know if I want to take an undersized point guard at 52. Right now, if this team had a solid center and was in a good spot, then it feels like Ryan Nembhard would be a pretty safe second-round pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing with so many of these players, especially when you're talking about players outside of the draft lottery. Obviously, teams are going to take the best talent available and make the talent fit to whatever context and style of play they have. But fit is so important for these players. When you get a player that fits to a team that has specific needs that they match, you typically see that player ascend in terms of the Rookie of the Year conversations and just generally catching people by attention and things like that. So I would keep that in mind with a lot of these players, but yeah.
Chad, is audio better now? Apparently the audio got a little messed up. We see the levels coming through on this end, so let us know. Said audio's going weird and breaking up. Y'all let me know. Sean says good. Brian says, what are you talking about? You're not allowed to know, actually. We're gatekeeping. We're gatekeeping Ryan Nembhard talk, everybody. Audio good for Andy. Okay. Joel says they've also worked out with RJ Felton. We did mention some RJ Felton talk the other day. Not as high on his fit with the Suns, personally. Nope. Half the people are saying it's good. Half the people say it's not. Guys, exit out of YouTube, refresh, come back in here. Let us know if that audio is still messed up. Sometimes YouTube can be weird since half of you are saying you have a problem. Half of you aren't. In the meantime, super chat from Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. $7.99 in Australian dollars. Thank you. It says drop in a super chat in Australian dollars to say thanks for being open to the NBL chat. He did ask if we could talk a little NBL prospect as well. We will talk about Alex Tuhey at another day, but apparently he is the player to watch out of the NBL, the highest draft prospect there. Any final thoughts before we hit a little postseason talk, Steven, on the 8 names that we've talked about today?
I think a lot of the same players that the Suns should be targeting via trades, via free agency, are the exact archetypes they should be trying to hone in on and develop in terms of skill within their team through the draft as well. So point of attack defenders, wide range and wing defenders that can shoot. Obviously centers if a center is available for you as well. All of those things should be taken into account.
Agreed. We know what the plan is, but will the Suns execute? We will continue our draft coverage as this offseason rolls on. Once again, the draft is on June 25th. That is just a little bit over a month away. Every single Wednesday, we're going to be diving deep into draft prospects. Plus, we'll have some additional videos as well from our favorite prospects. So let us know who you want to see us break down and everything of that nature. Speaking of breaking down, let's talk a little playoff hoops. But of course, if you're watching on television, the party always continues over at gophnx.com, which means it's time for overtime. No overtime in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Stephen, OKC took it home at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards. What was your biggest takeaway from a Game 1 win for reported MVP of the season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
For one, you can't turn the ball over against Oklahoma City. If you turn it over, it's going to be points on north of 1 point per possession per turnover. That's something that's going to work severely against you because their defense is unrelenting and it translates to activity across multiple lineups. The other big thing for me, defense for Oklahoma City, whether they're causing turnovers or not, flipping matchups, making the Timberwolves offense flatten out in terms of the attack, keeping Anthony Edwards on the perimeter, and showing all types of help, loading up at the blocks and elbows, showing early help, taking away vision, being able to apply pressure on the ball, plugging him like Tim Legler talked about, taking away his early offense attacks. Mm-hmm. They're just so good. He goes from he has Alex Caruso on the starter possession, gets a screen from Naz Reid, and guess who's waiting on him on the other side? Lou Dort.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it?
No, not at all. You mentioned Legs. Shout out to Legs. I stumbled upon the ESPN Insight cast yesterday, which is a separate broadcast from the regular play-by-play. Mm-hmm. No shade to the regular play-by-play, but it was so much better with friend of the program, Tim Legler, which if you missed it, he was on yesterday. So you can find that on your audio feed and here on YouTube. That third quarter was suffocating for OKC, coming out, outscoring Minnesota by 14, 32-18. My biggest thing is, holy crap, Julius Randle in the first half. Yeah. This dude is on an all-time playoff heater right now. Ended with just 28, 8, and 1, but his first half was crazy. Shot 5 of 6 from 3. Has made up for some poor offensive performances from Anthony Edwards, who also did have to leave the game with a foot injury as well. Do you think Minnesota has enough to take down this OKC team, or is the writing on the wall?
So when we talked about playoff ball yesterday, I mentioned the others for Minnesota: Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels. Are you guys going to make your shots? Are you going to have impact on offense? Last night, that answer was no. It didn't matter in the first half because Julius Randle made everything that he touched in terms of when he put up a shot at the goal. You don't want him to have to be Hercules for your offense, especially if Anthony Edwards is even the slightest bit of slowed down with the ankle injury. But if Julius Randle does continue to play to this level and Anthony Edwards is who he knows or who we know him to be, that gives them a puncher's chance. I just don't know if they have enough because of the waves that Oklahoma City's defense can hit with.
I think the only way that Minnesota wins this series is if they have 2 of the top 3 players. Shai is most likely going to end up being one. I think Anthony Edwards has the ceiling that he could be one. But again, like I mentioned, Shai is going to be named MVP according to reports later tonight.
Which is weird because they say wait for the announcement. We get the news that the announcement is taking place in the conference finals. And then like 8 hours in advance, here's Sean's with
it's the whole thing.
Make it make sense. Make all of it make some type of sense.
Also, a sidetrack. Shout out to Michael Malone going on an all-time petty tour, talking about the best fans in the NBA for OKC, how Shai is the MVP over Nikola Jokic. Good times from Michael Malone.
Aside from the shade, the analysis was top tier.
Good analysis and good shade. I'm here for both of it.
Yeah, there's a way they can live with both for sure.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards needs to be better in this series.
For
Only
sure.
18 points, minus 23 on the night. Shot 5 of 13 from the field. Him and Julius Randle took a combined 26 field goals. You mentioned the others, and I get it. You only win championships with the others, but at the same time, if your top players aren't playing like your top players, that's not going to be good.
Matter as much.
And Julius Randle played like a top player last night.
He's the second best player on the court for multiple stretches.
And here's the thing is, you held Shai down a little bit at the beginning there. He got to the line. Mm-hmm. Insert joke there. But he wasn't scoring like crazy, and then he got more into a rhythm later on. You need Anthony Edwards to get his rhythm and to establish himself. But, of course, the injury coming into play there as well.
I'll just kindly add, when watching this series, look at how many point of attack defenders each of these teams has. They have multiple players that they're comfortable with being at guarding Shai or guarding Anthony Edwards or guarding Jalen Williams and being able to do that effectively. You can't survive in these modern playoffs if you don't have multiple bodies and multiple ways in which you can put pressure on an offense, whether it be an offensive team or a specific player.
Yeah, 100% agree. Brian says Rudy is back to being Rudy.
I wouldn't say all that. You got to credit Oklahoma City. They got perfect matchups for them, but they can also downsize. And we know that if you have a team that can switch, you can take Rudy Gobert off the table in terms of his offensive impact.
Yeah.
That is exactly what Oklahoma City is as a defense.
Suffocating defense. Turnovers are just deadly.
Turnovers are automatic points. Yep.
Automatic points. 68-14 on the season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're up 1-0 in the second round. Weird that game got started first, but nonetheless, the Eastern Conference Finals is starting tonight in just about an hour. It's an old school classic. It's Indiana versus New York. Pacers against the Knicks. What's the number one thing that you're looking for tonight in this matchup?
Can the Knicks defense find those pockets of being comfortable and being active against Indiana's offense in the ways in which they did against the Boston Celtics, to where Boston has 20-plus point leads and it simply doesn't matter because Thibodeau finds one or two specific things to poke at and take something off the table from them, and now they're able to go on 7-0, 10-0, 14-2, 14-8 runs and incrementally work their way back into games. Can they find those same defensive points to dictate on a game against Indiana? I don't think so. I don't think they have the facilities for that in particular. But Indiana has to continue to make shots too.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing that I'm watching for is, does Indiana still have the sliders turned up for jump shot success like in 2K? Because my Lord, it's like a magnet with how they were shooting in the first couple of rounds. They've only lost 2 games this entire playoffs. Leg said it yesterday when he was on the show that they've had the best performance this playoff so far. I know you've said it as well, taking down good teams. I mean, Giannis's Bucks, who are in a weird spot, but it's still Giannis. And then the number 1 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, they're absolutely on fire, and they play with a passion. They have a great coach. They're an extremely deep team, probably the second deepest team left alongside OKC. Who is Cam Johnson rooting for, though? Because we know Cam Johnson currently plays for the Nets, and when he caught up with Espo and I over the weekend, Espo asked him, you got some former teammates on the Knicks, but it's the Knicks. So what is that dynamic like? Take a listen.
How does it feel to see former teammates making it in the Eastern Conference Finals? Mikal Bridges, campaign. Landry Shamet, too. Does it feel good, or is it frustrating? How does that feel?
It's really hard to cheer for the New York Knicks.
I mean,
obviously, really, really hard. I want them and their individual success to be as high as it can be. I cheer for both of those guys individually, and I want them to perform. And if the result is their team's going to the Eastern Conference Finals, then I'm happy for them. I wouldn't say I'm actively cheering for the Knicks to win it all. That's
rightfully
that's a tough
so.
one. Yep, that's a tough one to do. But I cheer for those guys.
He's cheering for Mikal. I know that we are looking at Mikal's success tonight. Even campaign, throw a little Landry Shamet in there as well. Who do you think takes game 1, Pacers-Knicks?
Indiana. I think that the Knicks are going to have to do a lot of adjusting, but collecting data early in the series to figure out how to kind of go about defending that team. Question for you, though. Who's the best player in the series at this moment in time?
Brother.
And that's the conflict I was looking for. That's the response I was expecting.
It's between the 2 point guards.
Which then goes to which team can better guard the best player on the opposing team.
And they're such different styles. I mean, if you're looking for just a pure scorer, Jalen Brunson's going to be your guy. If you're looking for an offensive engine to make everybody else around you better, Tyrese Halliburton's that guy. And not that either of them can't do the other, but they're just 2 polar opposite prototypes for point guards. That's such an interesting question. So I'm going to go with Pascal Siakam.
If Pascal is the best player in the series, then that means that it's a sweep for the Pacers.
It's a sweep for the Pacers. I do think that Tyrese is a better overall player right now than Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson's ability in the clutch to get buckets is maybe the most important thing for either team in this series. Man, this is going to be a fun one.
It can be a free-flowing series. If it is, the Pacers will win in 6 or less.
That Knicks offense, though, man, like that, it can keep up. If OG's hitting shots, if OG and Mikal are doing good, Cat's hitting threes, Jalen Brunson's getting to his shots, there's a chance that New York can match that offensive pace, but it does play in Indiana's favor.
But I don't think there are enough conversations about Indiana's defense.
Yeah.
Andrew Nembhard in particular. If he's going up against Jalen
Ryan
Brunson,
Nembhard's brother.
Yes. He can't be screened, and you have to work in isolation against him. How beneficial is that for you? How hard do you have to work for every bucket that you get? And how does that look in the fourth quarter in crunch time? If games get to crunch time, that is.
It'll be fun to watch. I'll be watching it on a little bit of a tape delay. I'll be getting to that later tonight because I got a Survivor finale.
Jalen Brunson might have to be a survivor through this series against
Tyrese and Jalen Brunson are already in the WWE. They're already going to different outlets. So,
very fair.
I would love to see. What NBA player do I think would be the best at Survivor, and who would be the worst? Draymond would be the worst Survivor player for sure. Let's see here.
Steven Adams.
Steven Adams would get targeted though because he's so. You know, it would probably be somebody like Alex Caruso, who's super like unassuming. But had to grind it out.
Lou Dort.
Noah's saying no.
It'd be Karl Anthony Towns for sure.
In Survivor?
Yeah.
No.
After all that?
No.
Yeah.
No. Who would be that might need to be a snake draft. Man, I love Survivor. Sorry, everybody. About
Mariah,
campaign.
yes, I have the Pacers going to the finals.
Ooh. You know who'd be good in Survivor? Cam Johnson. Great speaker,
He's
cool,
smart.
calm, collected.
Yeah.
You know what? Give me the biased answer. Give me Cam Johnson. Draymond would absolutely get voted out first on Survivor. He would try to tell everybody what to do. He'd be really loud, and then people would be like, yeah, we can't have this guy around here. Bye. Okay, enough Survivor talk for me. If you're a Survivor fan, tap in later today. Maria says, what about Grayson on Survivor? Maybe. He would lose that baby weight. Okay, enough of that. You could follow the show at PHNX_Suns. Shout out Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen as always. Big shout out to Joe Jacksonn, who was not wearing shoes, confirmed, for joining us for the first half of this podcast, breaking down prospects in the first and second round. We'll continue our NBA draft breakdowns as we get closer to the draft about a month from now. Big shout out to Steven. Don't call him Steve. It's Steven with a PH. You can follow him on Twitter at StevenPG3. You can follow me at ErikRuby. And until tomorrow, the tribe has spoken.
We all silly like the mayor.